Hello everyone. I am Akshay Kumar Dev, Assistant Professor from the Department of Chemistry of Renwa University. So today I will discuss on the topic in situ and ex situ conservation. These two are the exhaustive methods in the conservation of biodiversity. But before entering into conservation of biodiversity part, let us understand what is biodiversity and what the threats to biodiversity are. So biodiversity can be defined as the variety, that means multiplicity, and variability, that means changeability among living organisms and the ecological environment in which they exist. So the word biodiversity, it consists of two parts. First part is bio, that means life, and the second part is diversity, that means variety. Hence, altogether biodiversity refers to the wide variety of life on the earth. So biodiversity exists among different resources of biosphere element. That includes land resources, animal resources, and obviously us, that is human resources. We all coexist in this environment, uh, live, evolve, and die. But keeping in mind today's economical and technological developments, the life on this earth is under severe threat. The most obvious manifestation of biodiversity loss is the extinction of species. This is a natural phenomenon. Species have been going extinct since life began. Indeed, it is estimated that many more species have gone extinct than exist at present. From the conservative estimate that the earth is home to almost 10 million species in all, it is estimated that between 0.2 and 0.6% of species are being lost almost every year. This rate is at least 10,000 times greater than the background or the natural rate of species extinction as estimated using the fossil record. So in the present day scenario, biodiversity faces unprecedented threats due to increasing human activities. Habitat destruction from deforestation, urbanization, and agricultural expansion remains the leading cause of species loss. Population, particularly from plastics, chemicals, and untreated wastes, further degrades ecosystems. Climate change also has emerged as a critical threat, altering the temperature and the rainfall patterns and pushing many species beyond their adaptive limits. Overexploitation of natural resources, such as overfishing and illegal wildlife trade, continues to deplete species population. Additionally, invasive species disrupt native ecosystems, often outcompeting or preying on the indigenous flora and fauna. These threats collectively accelerate species extinction and ecosystem collapse. Immediate and coordinated global action is essential to mitigate these pressures and preserve biodiversity for future generations. So, as per uh, Conservation of Biological Diversity 2010, there are five major threats to biodiversity. Those are habitat change, invasive species, overexploitation, pollution, and climate change. So now let us discuss these points one by one. So the first point is the threats to biodiversity. So here we discuss about habitat loss. Habitat means the place or type of site where an organism or population naturally occurs. When a natural habitat such as a forest or wetland is altered so dramatically that it no longer supports the species it originally sustained, plant and animal populations are destroyed or displaced, leading to a loss of biodiversity. It is called habitat destruction. The major cause of the habitat destruction remains deforestation, that is the cutting trees by peoples, and forest fire that may be due to human causes or by natural causes, etc. Habitat destruction is obviously different from habitat degradation. According to IUCN, a decline in species-specific habitat quality that leads to reduced survival and reproductive success in a population is called habitat degradation. The major causes of habitat degradation, as you can see in this figure, is soil erosion and mining by cutting the forest. Habitat fragmentation is the breaking apart of continuous habitat in existing species, as you can see in this figure. Loss of habitat, habitat degradation, or habitat fragmentation represents significant causes of known extinction and leads to reduced genetic viability and ultimately cause for the genetic erosion. The loss of habitats is the primary reason for the loss of biodiversity. When people cut down trees, fill a wetland, plow grassland, or burn a forest, the natural habitat of a species is changed or destroyed. These changes can kill or force out many plants, animals, and microorganisms, as well as disrupt their complex interactions among the species. Now, in this slide, we will discuss the second point, that is the introduction of invasive species. An invasive species can be any kind of living organism that is native, that is not native an ecosystem, and which has a tendency to damage the particular ecosystem. The common characteristics of invasive species include rapid reproduction and growth, high dispersal ability, high physiological ability to adapt new conditions, then ability to survive on various food types or in a wide range of environmental harsh conditions, and also have the potential to cause extinction to the native species and ecosystem. Invasive species are capable of causing extinction of native plants and animals by competing with them for a limited resources and thus leading to the loss of biodiversity. So the sudden introduction of invasive species to a given ecosystem, especially on islands or in freshwater habitats, causes disastrous consequences for native species. For example, the accidental introduction of an Atlantic comb jellyfish species to the Black Sea is a well-known example. These invaders have outcompeted the native fauna and now comprise some 95% of the Black Sea's total biomass. Next cause is the overexploitation. The term overexploitation refers to the human activities connected with excessive capturing and harvesting like hunting, fishing, or farming of organisms. According to IUCN, it is an exploitation, that is removal of individuals or biomass from a natural population at a rate which is greater than the population is able to match with its own regeneration capability, thus tending to drive the population towards extinction. Overexploitation of a particular species reduces the size of its population to an extent that it becomes vulnerable to extinction. The decline of Earth's largest terrestrial animal, the African elephant, is a classic example of the impact of overhunting. Largely because of the trade in the ivory, elephant populations have been declining in most of Africa. The next cause of the threat to biodiversity is pollution. So obviously in the era of rapid industrialization and globalization, pollution of different resources on our earth, that is air, water, soil, etc., undoubtedly proves to be a threat for the survival of the species and sustenance of the ecosystem. Pollution alters the physiochemical properties and degrades the quality of land, water, and air. So the species with a small range of tolerance is often threatened to extinction. So as you can see in this picture, like these hazardous chemicals or like air is excreted from the industries, and in this picture it is the plastics waste that are gathered on the bank of a water body. So they actually cause a severe threat to biodiversity. Now last, that is the climate change. So uh, the distribution of species and vegetation is largely governed by climatic and seasonal changes. The changes in temperature, solar radiation, wildfire, rainfall, flood, drought, storms, snowfall, and melting glaciers, etc. These all are the limiting conditions to the distribution of plants or animals on this earth. Species populations may be lost if they are not capable of adapting the new conditions or relocating to the new habitats. So in the past 30 years, the coral reefs in the Caribbean region have shrunken by almost 80%. So earning from diving-based tourism was nearly 20% of the tourism earnings earlier, but have presently declined so as to incur a loss. The fishery sector has also have been severely affected, as reported by UNEP 2008. So keeping in mind all the above threats to biodiversity, conserving it is not just about protecting plants and animals, it is about sustaining life on Earth, including human beings. Plants, it involves the protection and restoration of ecosystems, establishment of protected areas, adaptation of sustainable agriculture and industrial practices, and the promotion of environmental awareness and education. So we must understand that conserving biodiversity is a moral, ecological, and economic imperative to ensure a resilient and sustainable future for generations to come. So here, the conservation of biodiversity refers to the protection, upliftment, and management of biodiversity in order to derive sustainable benefits for present and future generations. Now, what are the objectives of conservation of biodiversity? Conservation of biological diversity leads to conservation of essential ecological diversity, preserve the continuity of food chains, the genetic diversity of plants and animals is preserved, it ensures the sustainable utilization of life support systems on Earth, it provides a vast knowledge of potential use to the scientific community, a reservoir of wild animals and plants is preserved, thus enabling them to be introduced if needed to be in the surrounding areas. Biological diversity provides immediate benefits to the society, such as recreation and tourism, and biodiversity conservation serves as an insurance policy for the future. That is the sustainable future. Now, there are two basic strategies for the conservation of biodiversity. Those are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So, in the upcoming slide, we will discuss in detail about these two conservation modes. So, in situ conservation, it refers to the preservation and protection of different species in their natural habitat. That means inside the natural region where they actually exist. There are various advantages of in situ conservation, like it preserves species as well as in their natural habitat, just as I have said. Then it ensures protection a large number of populations at the same time. It is an economic and a convenient method of conservation. It does not require species to adjust to a new habitat, and obviously they can evolve better and can easily get adapted to various environmental conditions. Now, so there are various types of in situ conservation. So first is the biosphere reserve. So according to UNESCO, the biosphere reserve is defined as the landing places for sustainable development. The biosphere reserve are unique entities for both public and the natural world and are living examples of coexistences between the mankind and nature, although respecting each other's needs. It serves as the undisturbed natural areas for scientific research and study. So there are few criteria to be like to describe any area as a biosphere reserve. So first is the site must be effectively protected and minimally disturbed, which is large enough to sustain a viable biogeographical units, and populations. Then there should be adequate cooperation between the management authority and the local communities surrounding it. And finally, the area must be potential for preservation of traditional tribal communities. And obviously, those places should be more preferable for biosphere. Now, in this adjacent figure, there is a schematic diagram of biosphere reserve. So you can see in this picture, a biosphere reserve is basically subdivided into three regions or zone. The innermost region is known as the core area. Then the intermediate area is known as the buffer area or buffer zone, and the outermost area is known as transition area. The core zone is actually a legally protected area where human intervention is strictly prohibited. Here, research activities may be allowed with special permission from the government or the competent governing authority. Now, in this intermediate zone, as you can see, only research and educational activities are permitted to humans. These activities must not obstruct the conservation objectives of the core area. And sometimes tourism is also applicable under special permission. And the outermost area, transitional zone of the biosphere reserve, which is open to all. And here the human activities like cropping, recreation, tourism, forestry, and settlements are permitted. So in our India, there are many biosphere reserves, but the prominent among them are Sundarban in West Bengal, Nanda Devi in Uttarakhand, Manas in Assam, Nilgiri in Tamil Nadu, and in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, it is Amarkand. So there are many more examples. Next is the national parks. So these are small reserves that are protected and maintained by the government. Its boundaries are well protected where human activities such as grazing, forestry, habitat and cultivation are restricted. So a national park, it can be within a biosphere reserve. Okay, so we can say in terms of area, biosphere reserve is largest and national parks are smaller to biosphere reserve, and obviously the national parks is larger in area than the next like example, that is the wildlife sanctuary. A sanctuary can be upgraded to a national park later. As of now, there are total 106 national parks in some prominent national parks are Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Kaziranga National Park in Assam, Ranthambore National Park in Rajasthan, Kana National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Gir National Park in Gujarat, Periyar National Park in Kerala, Jaldapara National Park in West Bengal, etc. Then comes the wildlife sanctuaries. These are the smallest protected areas meant only for the conservation of wild animals. Though killing, poaching, and hunting is prohibited, but few human activities such as cultivation, wood, and other forest product collection are allowed here, but they must not interfere with the conservation of the animals. So nowadays in India, there are almost 573 wildlife sanctuaries present in India. For example, few important wildlife sanctuaries are Pulikot, that is in Andhra Pradesh, Mudumalai in Tamil Nadu, Chilka in Odisha, then Gorumara in West Bengal, etc. So, except of all the above example discussed so far, the other in situ conservation modes are like gene sanctuaries, sacred groves, then bird sanctuaries, then the protection of wetlands, mangroves, and coral reefs, etc. Now, in this slide, we will discuss about the ex situ conservation. So, okay, before going to ex situ conservation, let me tell some disadvantage in the in situ conservation. as we already previously discussed, advantages of in situ conservation, the disadvantages including vulnerability, threats, then the land use conflicts, then management costs, limited control over different kinds of environmental conditions, slow recovery of endangered species, and obviously illegal activities that includes killing, hunting, and poaching, and political and sometimes administrative challenges. So, despite these challenges, in situ conservation remains vital for maintaining natural ecosystems and evolutionary process. So now, as per CBD, ex situ conservation may be referred to as the conservation of the components of biological diversity outside their natural habitat. That means where they actually exist. So uh, first example of in situ conservation is zoological garden. So zoo means a stationary establishment where confined animals are kept for exhibition to the public. Over the years, zoos have got transformed into centers for wildlife conservation and education. If properly managed, it serves a useful role in the preservation of wild animals. So some examples of zoological gardens in our country are Alipur Zoological Garden, that is in West Bengal, Nandankanan, Odisha, then National Zoological Park in Delhi, etc. The another type of ex situ conservation is botanical garden. The botanical garden are institutions holding documented collections of living plants for the purpose of scientific research, observation, display, and education. For example, like there are many botanical gardens present in our country. Among them, important are Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose Indian Botanic Garden, that is in West Bengal, then Botanical Garden of Forest Research Institute, Uttarakhand, National Botanical Research Institute, Uttar Pradesh, then Jawaharlal Nehru Tropical Botanical Garden and Research Institute in Kerala, etc. So, except of the above two, the other major ex situ conservation modes are like seed banks, then gene banks, then pollen, semen or ovum banks, etc. Few other techniques are also scientifically adapted for ex situ conservation, such as captive breeding, then cryopreservation, etc. So, next I will uh, discuss that advantages and disadvantages of ex situ conservation. The advantages of ex situ conservation includes protection from threats under controlled environment, then the rapid propagation of species, backup against the extinction through gene pool preservation, and also facilitated research and education. So despite these advantages, few disadvantage also remains, like high cost for building and maintaining the ex situ facilities, and most important, the loss of natural behaviors of the species, and like a very difficult or challenges is faced in reintroduction of them into their natural wildlife. And finally, over the generations, there may be the cause of genetic erosion, and the ethical concern also can be a disadvantage, like keeping wild animals in captivity may rise to ethical issues regarding animal welfare and rights. But obviously, this point can be clarified under certain government rules. All we have discussed about the in situ and ex situ conservation, but despite them, the government of India has taken many initiatives to protect some specific species, as you can see here, like tiger, crocodile, elephant, rhino, lion, etc. So here I have listed some of the government initiatives and arranged them according to uh, the year. Like in 1970, there was Project Hangul. So basically, Hangul is the local Kashmiri word that means it is the Kashmiri reindeer. So it is related to the protection of the Kashmiri reindeers. Then in 1973, uh, Project Tiger was launched. Then in 1975, Project Crocodile and Crocodile Breeding Project was launched. Then in 1976, Lesser Cats Project was launched. It launched in Sikkim to protect four smaller species of cats that actually endemic to that part of the country. Then in 1977, the Manipur Raw Antlered Deer Project. In 1982, Himalaya Mask Deer Project was launched. In 1990, Project Elephant was launched, and most recently, the two project 2005 Project Rhino was launched in Kaziranga National Park mainly for one-horned rhinos and for Asiatic lions. In 2020, Project Lion was inaugurated by the Government of India. So these are the topics under the Institute and Institute are basically conservation of biodiversity. So I have discussed all these topics and hope all of you have understand. So thank you.